All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Devstream 140 breakdown. Today there were not a lot of visual assets shown outside of them doing a full run of the Scarlet Spear event, as it were. So the footage that you're seeing on screen right now is going to be their full run of the Scarlet Spear stuff. And there is a lot of just kind of talking points to talk about, as opposed to a lot of visual stuff to see today. But I hope you guys enjoy the kind of Scarlet Spear footage, as it were. With that, there is still a lot to talk about. Let's get into it. First and foremost is Tennocon 2020. Tennocon 2020, the physical nature of it has been completely canceled. There is going to be no physical event for Tennocon 2020. This is unfortunate, as of course I love Tennocon greatly. But it is going to be fully digital. There's going to be a fully digital event. DE is still going to put on like a thing for Tennocon 2020. And also, for those of you worried about it, Baro Katir is still going to have a Tennocon relay for us to get all the things from him, for anyone who was worried about that. Outside of that, we have some other coronavirus effects, because obviously Tennocon was canceled because of the precautions around this. DE is instating a work-from-home policy, and this basically means that they're going to be moving as much staff as possible to be working from home to, prevent everyone at the entire studio getting sick simultaneously, because that would be fucking awful. And that is going to end up canceling the whole next week of streams, and we don't know how things are going to go in the future beyond that. Also, it has a potential slowdown for the devs just in general for a time until they kind of get used to working from home. That is, of course, super reasonable. DE is a larger studio that is used to coming into the office, and working from home is going to be a different workflow, and that just makes sense that it will slow them down a bit in kind of the long run, as it were, for getting things done. That also means that Scarlet Spear is going to experience a slight delay because they're transitioning to that. And obviously, while you're trying to get everything set up, things move slower. That's just how things go. Super understandable. Obviously, still unfortunate that we're going to be experiencing those delays. But I think it's smart of DE to take these precautions, because if everyone at the studio gets sick, then there's going to be no fucking Warframe content for a good long while. We can be assured of that. Moving on, though, from the morbid things, let's talk about impact and gas changes. So impact and gas are getting some new effects, and I feel weirdly about both of them. First of all, impact is getting a mix of staggers and heavy staggers, which is fine. That's basically what it does now. And it's going to build up to a Parazon finisher the more impact procs you get. But it's going to function very strangely. So for each impact proc that you put on an enemy, you're going to get 10% more of a chance to have a Parazon finisher state on that enemy. But it can only occur when the enemy reaches the threshold that you can execute a Parazon finisher. So this is fine. There's nothing inherently terrible about that. I mean, it's technically a positive, but the problem with this is that there's a big missed opportunity here, I feel, to make impact more of a very unique thing, where, say, for example, if you get 10 impact procs on an enemy, they just immediately go into a Parazon state, with, of course, some exceptions like liches and things. I think that would be much more interesting and give impact kind of more of a thing to do that's at least unique. Like, obviously, that thing that I just said, 10 impact procs, is so many, and usually we're going to instantly evaporate enemies before we get to that point, but it would at least give impact something unique that it's doing, where you could, instead of dealing with the Nox traditionally, you could have an impact weapon and then just Parazon finisher the Nox and take care of them that way. It gives you some more solutions to play around with if you're choosing to use an impact weapon, and I think that would be considerably more interesting than this, which is just almost certainly never going to impact the way that we're playing the game ever. So that's really unfortunate for impact. I really, of course, would have liked to see it be more of a damage-based thing, where it's increasing our damage, much like Slash does. But it is what it is. We'll see if it has any kind of effect on anything whenever it comes out, but I doubt it. Gas, on the other hand, is much more interesting. It is going to have an increased AoE with more procs up to a cap of 12 meters. So, 12 meters, pretty reasonable size. If you're going to be building up to that regularly, that's going to be nice. And this AoE is going to linger on death from enemies. But it doesn't sound like we're going to be getting the previous functionality of gas, where it would transfer over to toxin procs after you had this gas cloud going on. That is unfortunate, because toxin is obviously very, very good. But if this AoE can consistently be made and put down kind of everywhere, and you can just coat the world in gas, then there's a potential that it could actually see a good amount of use. Obviously, it's going to require a good amount of testing because if we need like 30 procs to reach that 12 meters, it's going to be like the least viable thing ever. But if you only need 5 procs of gas or something to get a 12-meter AoE that's going to be constantly doing some damage to a lot of enemies, that seems pretty reasonable overall, I'd say. But yeah, gas is going to be a more interesting case than impact, where I think just wholeheartedly that it's just not going to be useful. Impact isn't. But gas may actually see some use, and it may end up being like kind of a niche build on certain weapons. I could definitely see that happening as well. Moving on, though, let's talk about Scarlet Spear. Scarlet Spear is obviously what you guys have been seeing them do in the footage here, and I think personally that it looks really cool for a number of reasons that we're going to get to in kind of the end of these notes. But for reward stuff, there's going to be a smaller pool of arcanes to start. This is because they want to prevent everybody from just like exploiting it if there's going to be an exploit to be found, and get every arcane in the game, like 30,000 million of them. That's pretty reasonable. I think that's like a reasonable restriction to put on this at the start. Obviously, like the dumb reaction would be, oh, there just shouldn't be any exploits, but D can't account for like the insane multitude of things we could combine to possibly exploit this event. So we'll see what happens whenever it comes out. Beyond that, other rewards that are going to be coming from this are stance forma, which I hate. I hate this wholeheartedly. I, for a long time, have thought that stances should not have, like, polarization needs. Like, the weapons should just have a stance polarity, and you should be able to put any of the stances for that weapon into it, and then it's just the correct one, and you get some extra points in your melee weapon because you've got the stance mod to put into your melee weapon. It should be your reward for going and getting those stance mods. And you should be able to switch between stance mods way freely, because a lot of weapons have a couple of different stance mods, but only really one of them is good. But we should be able to use the less good ones if we want, without having to forma our weapons. Stance forma basically just says, oh, well, we could do that, or you could farm stance forma for it. And what this really boils down to is it's a type of forma I'm never going to fucking use, because I just know what the good stances for these melee weapons are, so I'm just not going to switch. Like, plain and simple, like, I don't need stance forma because I'm not going to switch stances off of the good one. There's, like, even for jokes, there's just no real reason to, because it ruins my build every time I do it. This could be a thing where they really give us more choice, but instead, stance forma. Really unfortunate to see that. Very sad. Beyond that, though, we do have 2 new weapons coming. One of them is a Lacera variant, and the other one is just a purely new sentient weapon. That's going to be interesting. Obviously, the Lacera is classically a very status-heavy weapon, and with the changes to status, that could be very relevant, so that'll be exciting. The new Simulacrum is going to be in there, as well as clan sigils. And also, there's going to be a new cinematic tied to Scarlet Spear. We don't know exactly how it's going to be tied to it, but it's going to be available the same way the Era cutscene is accessible at current. Okay, so for notes on kind of the footage that you're seeing right now, personally, I think the ground part of the event looks really cool. The design of the objective seems neat. It's endless styled, which is good. It just looks like a nice time where it's like kind of a reverse excavation, where you're going from place to place and just trying to kill the thing that you're encountering instead of protecting it. Reverse excavation sounds great. Seems like a fun time. I'm very here for the ground mission. Like, it's aesthetically very pleasing, as you guys can see here. I think the whole thing looks cool. The railjack part looks like a ground mission, because you're going to be inside a sentient ship, or at least 2 of you of the squad of 4 are, and the other 2 people are going to be stuck in a railjack. Because they said that you're going to be defending the railjack from swarms of fighters, so it's probably going to be 1 person to repair the railjack and 1 person to fly the railjack, and that's... obviously, I think obviously that's going to be way less fun than being in the cool sentient ship and doing the objectives there. Obviously, that remains to be seen. I would love for both parts to be fun, but as it stands, without railjack receiving a considerable rebalance, probably going to be lame. Kind of plain and simple. But, like, hey, that's like 75% of the players in the event probably having a good time, so that's more than expected. I thought it was going to be 50-50. So that's great. Excited for that to be ground team. Moving on, though, we have some new primes. These are, well, one of them's obvious. The other 2 we didn't know we were getting. We're getting Titania Prime, who is, of course, what we expected. She looks fantastic, looks real cool. And she's going to be coming with the Corinth Prime and the Pangolin Prime. Pangolin Prime is a pangolin sword. It's an old alert weapon. She's going to be coming with a unique animation set. Also, as a side note, Titania is going to be getting blink added to her kit. So whenever you're in your 4 as Titania, you're going to be able to blink around like the Arcwings can, which is really nice. Titania right now, if you're using Razor Wing Blitz, is already really, really fast, and in a lot of cases you don't want to sprint because you're so fast, but Blink gives you more of a potential to maybe not use Razor Wing Blitz and still have a high amount of mobility. We'll see how useful it actually is, but I'm glad that she's receiving like another buff to her mobility because it's just nice to have, plain and simple. Also, there are going to be some Lich changes coming in. Liches are going to be tougher, but they are going to be vulnerable to status now. This is basically a reaction to the feedback that they got where, hey, you guys buffed status, but there's a bunch of fucking enemies that are immune to status, so I guess I'm building crit, which is the correct reaction to have. Well done, everyone. So they are doing this change to Liches only for now, but I could see if this change on Liches goes well and people like it, that it would maybe be a change that they would roll out across like the whole of the game. I think that would be nice personally, because just things should be vulnerable to status and crit. Otherwise, crit is the de facto, and that's just the way it is. And as a last note here, the Nova Liverian and Deluxe skin are also going to be coming with the Scarlet Spear update. Overall, basically, they just told us a lot of things that are coming and like the changes to Tennocon and stuff. And overall, I'm actually pretty excited for it. Like the stance former thing is a bummer, sure. Not hearing about any like large changes that are coming to Railjack is unfortunate because I think Railjack could be good if they just made some like pretty large balance changes to it. But on the whole, excited. I'm more excited for the Scarlet Spear update than I was previously, so that's a success, I suppose. And yeah, that's kind of what's up. Also, for those of you that are still hanging out, I am going to be streaming tonight over on twitch.tv/Brozime, so come hang out. We're going to be opening some boxes of Magic the Gathering of a set that just came out. Should be very exciting, and that should be live pretty much right after this video has gone up. So come hang out, and I will hopefully see you there.